What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over a relatively simple Moss Golem AFK method. I would highly suggest only doing these on Slayer task or with wildcards because you want to be getting the boosted drop rate for the gloves. But this method gives you insane Slayer XP per hour. It's easily one of the best XP tasks you can be doing, and it also gives you a pretty solid amount of GP per hour. So if you guys are grinding out your ultimate Slayer or you're just doing Slayer for XP or money, this is a great task for you. For the preset with this method, you can see here I have a Necromancy as well as a magic setup here for the preset. Also later in the video, I will be showing a melee method, but it's not nearly as good as either one of these. So yeah, that's kind of just there to be there, I guess. But to start off, you can see the familiar we use is just going to be the Blood Reaver. And then above that, you can see we basically just have the corresponding damage reduction aspect of evasion is what they're called. For the combat style you're using, we also are going to be using deflect from melee. And then you can see next to that, we have the character in legacy stance with blood barrage. I'm not entirely sure how obvious that is, but that's what that little guy standing there is supposed to signify. For the actual gear setup itself, you can see we have the tank armor for the corresponding combat style, as well as Cinderbane gloves to be getting the poison damage, and then we use the vampirism aura to be spamming poison damage as well as to heal you a little bit, and then we use the scripture of when for the AoE damage. And then you can see the amulet that we're using with the Necromancy setup is actually the amulet, the blood amulet of Fury. I really like to use this amulet with Necromancy. It does make you have to use the powder of protection, but I really think that this is worth using because we're relying on devoted and enhanced devoted. I do like to have that extra little bit of healing. But if you are using the magic setup, you can see we just use an amulet of souls, and then obviously you're not going to need to use the powder of protection with that, and it makes the method a bit cheaper to use. But you need to have the magic gear in order to do that. For the weapons, you just need an Inquisitor staff, the magic setup, and then pretty much tier 90 plus weapons with the Necromancy setup. The inventory has kind of a lot of stuff in it. You may or may not need all of this stuff, or you don't really have to bring all this stuff, I suppose. But to start out at the bottom, we have the Spring Cleaner, just to clean up some drops. I don't even know if these things have alchables, to be honest, but I just bring this with everything. And then we have Cannonballs, the Excalibur, and the Shard, obviously. You could bring some incense sticks if you want. These are just Lantidime and Quirm to extend the potion duration as well as doing more damage. And then we just have a cape to get back to the Slayer Master. We have, overloads, some weapon poison, as well as some additional prayer. If you're not going to be using the powder of penance, you definitely are going to need to bring some additional prayer. But if you want this to be 100% AFK, you definitely are going to want to bring the powder of penance. One thing to note, with the magic setup, you don't actually need the vampirism aura. You can use the penance aura with the magic setup, but with the necromancy setup, I would highly suggest using vampirism. And then obviously we have the cannon and the Blood Reaver familiar there. So this is the preset. Like I said, there is going to be a little section about melee later, but I would highly suggest using either of these two styles. For a Lost Grove Creature Slayer task, I would highly recommend only doing Moss Golems. They require level 108 Slayer in order to fight. You can fight the lower level creatures at 104 and 106, but honestly, I feel like the Moss Golems are the only ones really worth fighting because the method to kill them is so good and the other methods aren't really that great. I'm sure you could maybe get something worth working, but again, it's not super great. But in order to get to this place, the Lost Grove, the best way I have found to get there is either use a fairy ring or use the grouping system to teleport to Solak. But the easiest way to get to Solak is to retune the Max Guild portal here to Solak. Even if you haven't completed a Solak kill, you are able to use the Max Garden or the Max Guild portal here. But if you do use a Wars Retreat portal, You will have to, you can see up here, we can retune a War's Retreat portal, but you do have to complete a kill in order to retune these. So for most people, they probably won't be able to use a Wars portal for this, but if you are maxed, the easiest way to get to Solak is simply just use the portal there. From the Solak teleport, you come over here to the east, and all we do is just continue to follow this little pathway here, and then you can surge if you want, and then it's right around this hillside, and then we go south over here to this little pathway to the Moss Golems. You can see one lurking in the corner over here. And this is how you get to the Moss Golems. So basically what we do here for this task is we are going to be using Legacy with Blood Barrage and using a cannon to lure all of the Moss Golems to us. And then we go over here up this little hillside, and because it is like a skinny little entrance to get up into the hillside, all of the Moss Golems will like walk like right in front of you, right where you're blood barraging, and you should be able to AoE them all down without having to deal with them attacking from all sides and the blood barrage is not hitting everything. So the first thing we want to do here is set up our cannon, and what we do for the cannon is you can see there's this grassy patch here, and we just go directly into the center of the patch and drop down our cannon. Obviously you want to be using the one that auto loads itself, so definitely be getting that. You will also probably want the cannon upgrade kit. I have the cannon upgrade kit, but honestly, I think that cannon looks so disgusting. I just used the royal cannon skin for it instead because it looks way better. But yeah, what we do here is we summon our Blood Reaver. You probably could use a Ripper Demon for this if you want, but the Blood Reaver is pretty decent if you're using the Vampirism aura. You can also use the Penance aura, but yeah. And then we want to switch over here to Legacy Combat Mode, and then make sure you are coming over here and switching to Blood Barrage. If you don't do this, you're gonna have a bad time. So yeah, make sure you're switching to Blood Barrage, and then turn on your Overload, turn on your Weapon Poison, turn on your Vampirism or whatever other aura you're using, and then obviously turn on your Scripture. And then we want to Animate Dead for the buff. And then for the prayers, we are going to be using Pray Melee as well as our damage boosting Curse here for magic. And then we just start up the cannon, and then this is the most important thing. We run over here up this little hillside, and as you can see, it's like a skinny little path. It's really hard to see it because of the textures here, but it is a skinny little pathway, and you can see all of the Moss Golems. I mean, their animations are kind of goofy, but all of the Moss Golems will pile up directly in front of you, and because of that, you will be AoEing all of them down. I think we should probably step it back a few squares here, so we can lure these ones. You can see they get kind of stuck there. So try to go all the way up the hillside, kind of by these little dead ones up here. I think it's 1 square forward, yeah. So right here, you can tell it's the correct one because there's the pile of bodies here, and then 1 square, and then we stand another square forward. And ideally, you'll just sit here and AoE them all down and get some pretty decent kills per hour. As for the stats of this task, I find you're able to get upwards of 820 kills per hour, which is pretty insane with this method. I was able to complete that task of 100 and some. I think I started it at 106 in like 7 minutes, 20 seconds. So it's a pretty ridiculous task. And that comes out to about 2 million Slayer XP per hour, about 1.4 million Magic XP per hour, about 500k HP XP per hour, and then approximately 50 mil an hour in profit. Obviously, you're only doing this for like 7 minutes at a time, so you're not gonna make a ton of money doing it unless you get a glove drop. But because the glove drop rate is 1500 and we're getting about 800 kills per hour, you should be getting a glove every 2 hours of doing this task continuously. If you were theoretically somehow able to just constantly be on a task and kill these. So yeah, I think this is definitely one of the best tasks in the game, from both an XP per hour as well as GP per hour perspective. Alright guys, so now I'm going to be going over the Necromancy setup, but before we get this set up, I am going to be talking about the perks here really quickly. Basically, you just use your standard best in slot perks or whatever you have on your tank gear. but you are going to need a either specific piece of gear. It could be a tier 80 piece, but I just made an extra tier 90 here with enhanced devoted 4 on it. And I would also highly suggest having the devoted 4 perk as well with maybe impatient, but I don't think that's absolutely necessary. But yeah, for this method, what we are going to end up doing is just kind of similar to what the melee method is going to be. We're going to be using deflect from melee, and then between the ghost, the vampirism aura, and you know, any extra healing we're going to be getting with the blood amulet, we should be able to self-sustain our HP. So with this method, we're going to plop our cannon down over here. Much like what we did before, turn on the vampirism aura, turn on the scripture, turn on darkness, and then use our necromancy damage boosting curse as well as pray melee. Obviously, we're going to overload, use our weapon poison here, and then we are going to want to use our powder of penance and probably powder of, or I mean your powder of protection, and then probably powder of penance if you're using that. Otherwise, you'll have to manually upkeep your prayer. Obviously, summon your Reaver, and then we are going to start the method here. So we start up the cannon, and then we run back to the same spot over here, right up the little hillside. And yeah, you can see here, we do want to be 1 square in front of the little pile of golems here. And then, yeah, you will pretty much just auto-retaliate to all of these, and you should be perfectly fine. You can see the action bar on screen here, and then I will show the kills per hour. So with this method, basically the way that this should work is, you know, like I said, all of the healing that you will be getting from the ghost and everything should be able to almost sustain you. But if you do need a little bit of extra healing, the blood siphon will generally get you just enough to, you know, always pretty much be full HP. So with this method, you may need to hit your ritual shard and drink some extra prayer with the powder of penance. It may not actually be worth using the powder of penance, however, it does make it significantly more AFK if you are going to be using like a super prayer renewal and sharding occasionally. But yeah, definitely be watching out for your prayer, because even with the powder of penance, you will have a slight amount of drain. With the necromancy AoE method, you generally get about the same kills per hour as the magic method, so about 820 kills per hour. That will get you, again, around 2 million XP per hour and about 60 million GP per hour. So with necromancy or magic, this task is really, really good. Alright guys, so I am here back at the Lost Grove, and we're going to be trying this with melee. You can see I have kind of a weird melee setup here. This is just kind of what I had with perks on it, to be honest. So for the melee setup, I'm not going to have a whole preset section here. It's basically just going to be, you know, your standard looking inventory, I guess, you know, standard inventory here. But also the gear that we are using is going to be a scythe. And then, you know, a top with your best in slot perks here, you can see we just have Crackling, Relentless, and Biting. You probably also want the Jaws of the Abyss and the Scrimshaw of Vampirism here. And then you can see I just have normal Masterwork legs here, and that's just because these already had the Devoted 4, Impatient 4, and Enhanced Devoted 4 perks on them. You are going to want to have these perks specifically. If you don't want to put the Devotion ability on your action bar, you can put that on your bar, but I don't know. Like, I found it works pretty well with these perks. And then you're also going to need a Scrimshaw of Vampirism here. So yeah, that's kind of what the melee setup looks like. So let's get over to the, what? Penguin. But let's get over here to the Moss Golems. All right, so you can see we are here at the Moss Golems again. For this method, you're probably gonna want to use Darkness. It does help quite a bit. So much like before, we're gonna put the cannon here really right in the middle of this grassy spot. And then we are going to use basically just Turmoil as well as Pray Melee. And then we're going to turn on our Scrimshaw, turn on our Vampirism Aura here. Make sure you use Darkness, like I said. Turn on your Overload, Weapon Poison, all that good stuff. If you want to, you can Powder of Penance for this task. And then we will start up the cannon here. So yeah, and then we pretty much just go back up into the same spot here. And then we will be able to AoE down this giant pile of Moss Golems, as you can see. So I find with this melee method, you should be fine pretty much the entire time if you're using darkness. If you're not using darkness, you maybe occasionally will run into an issue. But from what I've noticed, you know, when you have darkness active, you're pretty much like fully sustaining your HP for the entire task. You know, as you can see, because the golems only attack us from the front, our cleaves are hitting all of the targets. I was trying this where you stand in the cannon and you have like a giant pile around you, and it might have been slightly faster to do that. However, it did seem a little bit more sketchy, so I personally just like to sit up here on this hillside and use this melee method. Again, sometimes you might have to eat, like you can see there, my HP did dip a little bit. But again, from what I've noticed, as long as your devotion and stuff activates nicely, you almost never have an issue here. But yeah, it's not 100% perfect with melee. It does seem to occasionally maybe run into a problem here and there. Like right now, you can see we can Camelot. One other trick you can do for this is you can just manually use the devotion, or you could even put devotion on your revolution bar, and it should work fine as well if you do that. But if you don't want to do any manual clicking and fully AFK, you know, like I said, it might occasionally run into some problems. So the melee method is a bit slower than the magic method. It gets about 625 kills per hour. I would really only suggest this method if this is the gear that you have and you don't have like an Inquisitor staff or tier 90 Necromancy for some reason. 625 kills per hour will get you about 1.5 million Slayer XP per hour, about 1 million melee XP per hour, and then about 46 million GP per hour. So it's still a pretty solid task from XP and GP, but again, the magic method is significantly faster. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you guys use this method. It's a relatively simple method, all things considered, but because this task is so insanely good, it's definitely worth making the video on. So if you guys use this method, definitely let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, if you made it this far in the video, definitely drop a like on it. It does help promote this channel to more people. And thanks for watching, guys. I will see you in the next one.